Alright, I made a supplement to the series separately, which you could watch. It's not very good, but I'm going to continue on the series, and this will really be considered to be part 4. Although, I say some interesting things there, perhaps, but I don't say them very well. And maybe I say some stupid things there too. But I'm still going to publish it as a supplement to the series. I want to thank Beverly H. for suggesting this series, even though maybe she didn't exactly ask for a series. But we're discussing these issues. So I discussed already the religious Zionist approach, the non-Zionist, and we discussed 3 different approaches to religious Zionism, being Rav Kook, Rav Soloveitchik, and Meir Kahana. We discussed Aguda and the different approaches within Aguda, which is kind of a big tent of non-Zionism, really what makes it non-Zionist as opposed to anti-Zionist. And we also discussed the curious case of Chabad, which is unique, and I touched on some aspects of Chabad in this supplementary video as well. Now, we mentioned in the video on Aguda how Rav Shneur Kotler, Zichutzak the Brocha, how he said that the original way is the Samer way. He said the Samer is not a Shita. He said that's the original Torah way, and the Gouda is a Shita, basically. The Samer is not like an opinion. That's just Torah, and that the accommodations of Gouda are more chiddush, more novel. What Beverly asked in the comments is, it seems that it's only Satmar and the Torah card. And I discussed a little bit in the supplementary video about there's a difference between opposing Zionism and opposing the state and so forth. Again, just discussion, not really answers. However, to be intellectually honest, it's 100% true. If you look back in history, everybody was anti-Zionist. Who was, in a sense, one of the founders of modern Orthodox Judaism, as we have it today, was anti-Zionist. Like we said, the Rebbes of Lubavitch were anti-Zionist. The Rebbes of Belz were anti-Zionist. All the yeshivas, and we can find anti-Zionist statements already long before Zionism in the Rishonim. So, what's the question here? Of course, the answer is things change because now we have a state. So how do we deal with having a state? Excuse me. What kind of situation do we have that we have a state? excuse me. And I remember so excuse me. So this author in this book that I was reading, I don't remember the name of the book. It said like this. It said said that by opposing the state, it's very hard to recognize the state. Meaning by going out of the way to only for example, to not use Israeli money and so forth. What they're basically doing is recognizing the state by opposing the state. And what does that mean exactly? How do we understand that? Driving today because it's speed week, so I gotta go slow. I got a ticket already on Friday, but I see they pulled over someone else. I don't know if my speedometer is broken or something, so I slowed down a little bit more. But I saw my heart went down when I saw, even though Friday somehow I remained calm. It was so out of the ordinary what happened Friday. I don't know. So anyway. Supplementary video how Rav Dushinsky went to the I didn't mention it, but I kind of hinted to it. He went to the UN, and the way he approached it was basically to say he wanted his Yerushalmis to be Yerushalmis and not to be Israelis. The people he represented, the creators, would not be considered Israelis. Be national citizens or something. So what is this all about? Why? Where did this come from? This big push to not be part of the state of Israel and so forth. So just because they want to serve in the army? It's really a conscientious objector status. They impose the existence of the state altogether. It's different than conscientious objector status in other countries, meaning in other countries the conscientious objector would be that they object to war. They don't believe in war. Here we can't say we don't believe in war. However, we don't believe in the whole existence of this state. We're an indigenous people who were invaded and being occupied. a sense, as we said in our Aguda video, that many of the non-Zionists are also anti-Zionists, but they're not anti-Israel. But so too, really, the Satmar aren't particularly anti-Israel, they're anti-Zionist. They usually only speak up for against certain policies that Israel has, but not usually not against Israel, particularly when they're fighting against the Arabs, things like that. They're not taking the sides. It is what it is. Excuse me. No. For the most part, an American Turk is closest with the B'nai Yol group of Satmar, and to them, the mainstream Satmar are not sufficiently anti-Zionist, particularly, because the Satmar Rebbe from Monroe, the one thing they didn't like about him is that, his father-in-law was the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, things like that. Excuse me. And then the public school, I've heard B'nai Yol, Terry Carter people say that the public school in Monroe and Kiryas Yol, to them, is worse than Zionism. I remember someone who was collecting money for his son. He lives in Kiryas Yol, and he's from the B'nai Yol, and collecting money so his son could have special ed. And I said, when you live there in Kiryas Yol, you have. I said, what's that in Zionism? What are they, Zionists? It's in the Erga with the Zionism. They're worse than the Zionists. It's a silly thing to say. It's a horrible thing to say. And it's wrong. I'd still like to be friends with everybody, whatever, but it's not, it doesn't make sense to me, So then, but again, that was one thing I remember. I was talking to people from the Turk Art, and one thing that upset them very much, they had to bring up, is that they have a public school, and to this day on Tisha B'Av they protest against the public school. In Turk Art, they come to Kiryas Yol to protest against the public school. Allergies, I don't know what's going on. So anyway, but it's not just Satmar, of course. Brisk is well known to be anti-Zionist. The Brisker Rav was quoted as saying that to vote in Israel, it's not as big of a mitzvah as Aaron Cutler says. It's not as big of a sin as Satmar Rav said, but still he didn't vote, and so and the Satmar Rav often said the Brisker Rav is just as anti-Zionist as I am, just he's afraid to speak out too much because the Zionists are, there's a chash of shvichas damim, like we saw by Professor Dahan, and I made a video a few years ago about Professor Dahan you can find. Who else do we have that was anti-Zionist in Yerushalayim? We have Tolsar Mitzchak. Maybe Tolsar Mitzchak is not as anti-Zionist as Tolsar. Zionist. Tushinsky, another one. So there are all these different groups. That's the basic Williamsburg Kiryas Yol. Anybody who's in Kiryas Yol, Williamsburg, not everybody in Williamsburg, but there are Buddhists in Williamsburg, but they're modern Orthodox in Williamsburg too. And then you have ones that stay out of politics altogether, like the Square. So within the Square, you have some who are anti-Zionists, some who are Aguda, some who are, and then what other Gedolim were outspoken anti-Zionists? Probably from the English-speaking world, Rabbi Victor Miller, Zecher Tzadik Kodesh L'Varacha. Had the chance of meeting him a few times. He was certainly very strong against Zionism. He had respect for Aguda also, and he was a young Israel rabbi. So he covered all the bases. So you have an anti-Zionist young Israel rabbi, and he was mashgiach in Chaim Berlin, which is a bit more modern, almost bordering on Zionist. Certainly in the older days, maybe not as much today. So this is basically, so you see that there was much more, acceptance also, and even to today, there are many people who are upset, against the anti-Zionists, but the fact of the matter is, when you talk to the Gedolim about it, they were Balabatim. They wanted to make they wanted to boycott everything from Satmar. They went to Soloveitchik. It should be noted, of course, that you have Soloveitchik, the Briskers are also the Soloveitchiks. A friend of mine in the real Brisk in Yerushalayim, they don't let anybody in who went to college. So I have a friend of mine who taught me a lot about anti-Zionism, and he's a strong anti-Zionist. He's been living in Yerushalayim for the past, 15, 20 years. And this younger man finished Shas before his chasana, very chashuv younger man. Grew up more modern and became more Haredi, yeshivish. This younger man, he said to me, he learned in the mirror. He's still learning in the mirror. And he wanted to learn in Brisk, but they won't let him because he went to college. He went to Brandeis, and so he said, "You won't let me go to college, but your cousin had a college." That was his answer. But that was a joke he would tell, and then he would say, that the Briskers, they would come eat in the mirror because the mirror takes money from the government, so they have good food there, and the Brisk, and then he would make jokes about, what kind of food they have in the mirror, they have omelets and this and that, and steak, he'd make these jokes, whatever. So they asked for Soloveitchik to sign on to a boycott against Satmar, and Soloveitchik said, how could I do that? He said, ever since Satmar came to America, everybody got frumer, even I got frumer. And he said, that's a good thing. A lot of people are upset, from the modern world. Ruining everything, making everybody keep black kosher, and this and that. But Soloveitchik didn't have that opinion. Soloveitchik, he said, no. He said, it's good that I became frumer. Put Satmar up. So I also want to mention something a friend of mine brought up. Is there are other quotes from Rav Soloveitchik vis-a-vis Zionism. One is that he explicitly said that he had nothing to do with the eschatological hopes of Rav Kook. That was not his approach. And also he mentioned the 5 sermons. And there in the 5 sermons, Rav Soloveitchik, I saw this brought down by Yaakov said he quoted from the 5 drushes from Rav Soloveitchik, where Rav Soloveitchik said notice a phenomenon in history. It used to be that Jews and Muslims got along very well, and Jews and Christians, the Christians persecuted the Jews. Now, Jews and Christians get along very well, and the Jews and the Muslims are fighting. About, and Rav Soloveitchik said, there's only one thing in Zionism. America Hana always loved to point out, oh look, before the state existed, the Arabs hated us. Look, 1929. The fact of the matter is, though, that Zionism started in the 1890s, and it was around the 1920s that they really got big, and it was about Zionism, pre-state Zionism. Zionism didn't start in 1948, it started 50 years earlier. And so that's the answer to America Hana. Like you can see with Baruch Kaplan, also a big anti-Zionist. And there he was Manal of Beis Yaakov. Samarov was against the Beis Yaakov system. He had the Beis Rachel system, different than the Beis Yaakov system. Muslims and Jews are fighting is because of Zionism. It's not because of Judaism or Islam. Excuse me. So, basically that's the what we can say, so you do have certain groups that are, and then you have groups that are, like we said, they're officially anti-Zionist, but they're not. They're just officially anti-Zionist, but they don't talk very much about it. Like I said, Tolstoy from Yitzchak, and Shemir even Shemir is going more toward the Gouda, Nicholsburg, a lot of these, they're just officially on the books, meaning they're not a Gouda, they're not, they're Zionists. They're on the books, but they don't talk about it very much, and they really don't care, and it's really not a big deal, but it's not something they talk about all the time. And that's really, I would say, my personal approach. I send my children to summer schools. I don't believe in being very extreme against Zionism. I certainly don't believe in put together a website, and you can learn about it. And my suggestion is, people approach it. I don't have a goal personally of making everybody anti-Zionist. My goal is as follows: people should be educated about different approaches and make their own decisions. It's one. And two, they should accept that the anti-Zionists are just as valid as the Zionists and non-Zionists. Meaning, if we accept in the world that there are different approaches to Orthodoxy, and we can accept the fact that all of these are valid, and we can agree to disagree, and we can all live together, that I think is the best. The hatred, I don't see the hatred that many religious Zionists have for the anti-Zionists is totally unfounded, and it's not anything that any of their Rabbanim would have supported. And in general, there's usually mutual respect on both sides. Meaning, even, they say that after the Medina was founded, they were sitting talking with Samarav about the chief rabbi they elected in Israel, Rav Herzog. And Samarav said, he's machnia to Das Torah, he's whatever, even though, Samar, they don't believe in this idea of Das Torah, but he recognized, that he, as a boiler mensch, he had respect for him, even, of course, he disagreed. It's interesting. I was talking to someone who was a big Kahanist, but he also had respect for Rabbi Victor Miller, and he said he heard Rabbi Victor Miller say, because a lot of people say bad things against Rabbi Meir Kahana. He said, I knew Rabbi Meir Kahana. He was an Erlachid, meaning there could be understanding and mutual respect even among the various extremes. Although one friend of mine points out quite aptly, and this was something that I've always felt from my youth, is that there tends to be a strong camaraderie of sorts between the extremes of the anti-Zionists and the extremes of the religious Zionists, Kahanist religious Zionists, because they're both anti-establishment. I saw after the disengagement from Gaza, I saw a video where a man with the Kippah Sruga was sitting there singing Rabbi Blau's song, Hashem Malkeinu, had a big concert. Obviously, their ideology could be it's the Torah Karta anthem, and they could be unified because they both hate the Medina. Meaning, for different reasons, but and so we have to be intellectually honest. But we can still love each other, and the fact is, like the Gemara says, just like people's faces are different, so too their opinions are different. We have to be aware of what the world is really like. Like I heard Roberto once say, you can't have a time on someone that they have a different nose than you. You can't have a time that they have a different opinion. We have to. Excuse me. That's just how it is. There are different opinions, there are different approaches, and everybody's entitled to have their approach. Particularly, you can't just make up whatever you want and call it Judaism. You make up what you want, you call it something else. But not everything is Judaism. But yesterday one of my patients, he said, whatever, Judaism is so many different opinions, whatever I want to say is also Judaism. Just yours is popular Judaism, but mine is also Judaism. No, it's not true. You can't just make up whatever you want and call it Judaism. And you have to have some source, some it's not whatever you want. But there are, within Judaism, many different approaches. wrong on some level, and we got to find some common ground, and that's what is eventually going to happen. But until that happens, we just have to love each other. We can agree to disagree, and it's like lahavdil. I remember Mario Bar Tzadok. He said that he met Hal Lindsey. He's a big eschatologist, born-again Christian evangelical, and they were both on a TV show together, Ancient Prophecies. I remember that show. I don't remember Rabbi Bar Tzadok of the show, but I remember when the show was on. What was that? Was on NBC. There was a few different versions. There were a few, there's just a few sequels, like Ancient Prophecies. It was on regular TV. When I was a kid, I don't know, in the 90s. So Rabbi Bar Tzadok, he said that Hal Lindsey was trying to convert him. And what did he say to Hal Lindsey? He said, Hal Lindsey, he has a show, I don't know if it's still on, I remember maybe in the 2000s, I would flip and I would find Hal Lindsey's show, and it was always interesting because he always had something to say about Israel and eschatology and prophecy and things. And in the 70s he wrote the book, The Late Great Planet Earth, right? So Hal Lindsey, I don't know if he still has a show on, maybe he does, but he's a missionary, so he had this show every week. He's like, this is it, the world's gonna end this week, and it just didn't happen, and it's like, it's 10 years later, 15 years later from what I've seen. It's the last time I've seen that show, and it's always like every week it's like, this is gonna be the week, the world's gonna come to an end, it's finally gonna happen. No, all right, didn't happen this week, maybe next week, So Rabbi Bar Tzadok, he said, Hal Lindsey was trying to convert him. So he said, Pastor Lindsey, Dr. Lindsey, whatever, I don't care if I'm right or if you're right, as long as whenever it happens, we could both hold hands and say, blessed be he who comes in the name of the Lord. And, he had his Gaba there, Pastor Lindsey, he had his Gaba there, his secretary, his assistant, and he said, wow, Rabbi, you're the first person to ever shut him up. So it's the same thing, lahavdil, of course. Here we're all talking, there we're talking about, or the Zohar, Kfir, or whatever. Here we're talking about, all different holy approaches, all of which are within the realm of Torah, and all of which have the right to call themselves Judaism. They're all Orthodox Jewish approaches. But we should all be able to be friends and love each other, and when the time comes, we should all be, like I remember I was sitting with one Hasidic Rebbe, we're talking about the Lubavitcher, how so many Lubavitchers, they think the Lubavitcher was Mashiach, and it was a very popular opinion, especially when he was alive. There were many people who couldn't stand Lubavitcher Hasidim, but they believed Lubavitcher was Mashiach, it's true, and my experience personally is that I don't have so much of a problem with the ones who think the Rebbe is Mashiach, and I have more of a problem with the ones who think that he's the Nasi Ador and he's the Rebbe of all the Klal Yisrael. He's the only Rebbe. There's no other Rebbes, and this very arrogant attitude that they have. That I do have an issue with, and certain other things, other aspects of what they do, but that they think the Rebbe is Mashiach, it really doesn't bother me that much. It's meaning they have worse problems, meaning that should be the least of their problems. But that's neither here nor there. But like Aaron Feldman said, that it's not Sphira to believe Lubavitcher is Mashiach. It's just stupid, That's all. Like Brisker Rav, when Basi Lagani came out, they say that Brisker Rav, I remember one Yid, he told me he's a Bacher, and he said, I think the Lubavitcher Rebbe thinks he's Mashiach. Oh yeah, I forgot to refill this. And he said, and everyone told he was crazy. No, Samer, he said this. But anyway, the Brisker Rav, he said, when he saw the Basi Lagani, the first climber, Lubavitcher Rebbe said when he became Rebbe, the Brisker Rav said, "Yeah, the Mensch meint is Mashiach." He said, "This man thinks he's Mashiach, but we can't waste time fighting him because we have to fight Zionism. Zionism is pekuach nefesh. It's a threat to human life, to Jewish life, and a false Messiah is not, especially someone like him, is Ner L'Chiyid, not talking about Shabtai Tzvi, who's, telling people not to be frum, or Jacob Frank, who's telling people to do big averas. We're talking about someone wants people to be frum, so if he thinks he's Mashiach, so he's Mashiach, so who cares, That doesn't hurt us, but the Zionism, that's Pekuach Nefesh, this is the biggest argument against Zionism, What right do we have to put Jewish lives in danger? To have a state where Jews are going to be in an army and get killed in the army and get killed in wars. 20,000 Jews have been killed in all the wars and terrorism and everything since 1948. And it wouldn't have happened if they would have just gone to America, or even they would have gone to Palestine and said, we're going to be British subjects, or we don't need a Jewish state. Meaning, the Jews were happy to have two different states in 1948. The Arabs didn't accept it. They won't accept a Jewish state. So don't have a Jewish state. So make it one state. My suggestion is, like how America, you have different sovereign states and one federal government. That's really what Israel should do. They should annex, Gaza and the West Bank, and that's going to solve most of the issues that Gaza and the West Bank are not connected. They're two separate states, and then also Israel. You can separate into different states. Maybe some are more Sephardim, some are more Russians, some are more Haredim, some are more Chilonim. You could have, 10 different states under one federal government with a constitution. So they have their local state elections, and then they have the national election. And so on the local state or county levels or something, certain ones that are Jewish and certain ones that are Arab and certain ones that are religious, certain ones that are secular, and those are municipal level. And then you have a federal government that ensures human rights, ensures religious freedom, meaning even if you live in a religious community, you don't have to be religious, so you could be a different religion. You live in a secular community, you could be religious, you don't have to be secular. But divide up Israel into different, you have Christian, Nazareth could be like Christian, wherever, even though now the Haredim moving to Nazareth, and divide it up like that into various states under one federal government. I think that would solve everything, or it would solve a lot of things, not everything. Mashiach could solve everything, but it wouldn't be a Jewish state. It would just be a multinational scratched the surface. We could talk much longer about this, but this is what I wanted to share with you all. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe.